Hare Krishna. So today we'll be reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 1, text number 43. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Nunam Nripanam Tripamadotvatanam Mahim Muhushchalayatam Chamubi Vadat Prapanarti Jihir Shayesho Pyupaikshatagam Bhagavan Kurunam. I'll read the word for word. Nunam, of course. Nripanam, of the kings. Three. Mada utpatanam, going astray out of false pride. Mahim, earth. Muhu, constantly. Chalayatam, agitating. Chamubi, by movement of soldiers. Vadat, from the act of killing. Prapanna, surrendered. Arti Jihir Shaya, willing to relieve the distress of the sufferers. Isha, the Lord. Api, in spite of. Upaikshata, weighted. Agham, offenses. Bhagavan, the Supreme Lord. Kurunam, of the Kurus. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Translation: despite his being the Lord and being always willing to relieve the distress of sufferers, he, Krishna, refrained from killing the Kurus, although they committed all sorts of sins, and although he saw other kings constantly agitating the earth by their strong military movements, carried out under the dictation of three kinds of false pride. Purport. As declared in Bhagavad Gita, the Lord appears in the mortal world to execute his much-needed mission of killing the miscreants and giving protection to the suffering faithful. In spite of that mission, Lord Krishna tolerated the insult to Draupadi by the Kurus and the injustices perpetrated against the Pandavas, as well as insults to himself. The question may be raised, why did he tolerate such injustices and insults in his presence? Why did he not chastise the Kurus immediately? When Draupadi was insulted in the assembly by the Kurus, by their attempt to see her naked in the presence of all, the Lord protected Draupadi by supplying an unlimited length of clothing, but he did not chastise the insulting party immediately. This silence of the Lord did not mean, however, that he excused the offenses of the Kurus. There were many other kings on earth who had become very proud of three kinds of possessions: wealth, education, and followers. And they were constantly agitating the earth by movements of military strength. The Lord was just waiting to get them together on the battlefield of Kurukshetra and kill them all at one time, just to make a shortcut in his killing mission. Godless kings or heads of state, when puffed up by advancement of material wealth, education, and increase of population, always make a show of military strength and give trouble to the innocent. When Lord Krishna was personally present, there were many such kings all over the world, and he thus arranged for the battle of Kurukshetra. In his manifestation of Vishvarupa, the Lord expressed his mission of killing as follows: I have willingly descended on the earth in my capacity of inexorable time in order to decrease the unwanted population. I shall finish all those who have assembled here except you, the Pandavas. This killing does not wait for you to take part in it. It is already arranged. All will be killed by me. If you want to become famous as the hero of the battlefield and thus enjoy the booty of war, then, O Sabyasachi, just become the immediate cause of this killing and thus take the credit. I have already killed all the great warriors, Bhishma, Drona, Jayadratha, Karna, and many other great generals. Do not worry. Fight the battle and be famous as a great hero. That is Bhagavad Gita chapter 11, text 32 through 34. The Lord always wants to see his devotee as the hero of some episode which he himself performs. He wants to see his devotee and friend Arjuna as the hero of the battle of Kurukshetra, and thus he waited for all the miscreants of the world to assemble. That and nothing else is the explanation of his waiting. Om Jnanatamidandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So I'll just read the translation one more time. So this is Vidura speaking. I'm sorry. This is Vidura speaking, and he's been on pilgrimage. He was very insulted by Duryodhana in Dhritarashtra's assembly hall, and he left on pilgrimage. And while he's on pilgrimage, he comes across Uddhava. And so he's been asking Uddhava about the well-being of various personalities. And now Vidura's stating that he says, despite his being the Lord and being always willing to relieve the distress of sufferers, he, Krishna, refrained from killing the Kurus, although they committed all sorts of sins, and although he saw other kings constantly agitating the earth by their strong military movements carried out under the dictation of three kinds of false pride. So in the purport, Prabhupada is explaining why is it that Krishna waited to exact justice, because he gives the example of Draupadi when she's being disrobed in the assembly hall. Even though Krishna protected her by providing her with the unlimited cloth, he didn't show himself. He did not arrange for the offenders to be punished at that time. Although, that action set in motion essentially the entire battle of Kurukshetra, which led to the death of not only the assembled offenders, but as Prabhupada explains, a whole, the entire horde of kind of demonic and unjust rulers that were present on the earthly planet at the time. So Prabhupada explaining how Krishna tolerated the offense of the Kurus, waiting for them all to be assembled on the battlefield so that he could kill not only them at that time, but all of the other corrupt kings who would be siding with the Kauravas. And at the end here, Prabhupada says that and nothing else is the explanation of his waiting. But he also points out some subtle things in this purport that are very, very nice and very relevant lessons. This whole idea of waiting, for Krishna's, whether it be for Krishna's mercy or for Krishna's punishment, is something that's very relevant to us. So one thing that we can understand here is that, we can see that Krishna never forgets an offense against his devotee. So, again, the example that Prabhupada is citing here is of Draupadi being disrobed in the assembly hall, and Krishna did not take any action at that time. But still, we know that eventually the battle of Kurukshetra happens, and then Krishna takes action by destroying the entire opposing side, everyone except for the Pandavas is annihilated, and Krishna ensures the Pandavas in the Bhagavad Gita that this will be the outcome even before the war takes place, and that they just have to be instruments. So Krishna never forgets the offense against his devotees, even if the reaction takes time to appear. This is really important to understand, and this is, again, for our own benefit to understand the severity of offense against Krishna's devotee, and why we should always try to repent and take the proper actions to reverse any offenses against the devotees that we might commit. And so these, for maybe for the average person, the reason for repenting would just be so that we don't suffer some type of karmic consequence. But us, our aspiration as devotees, even beyond wanting to avoid suffering, is to allow ourselves to be vessels that can accept the mercy of the Lord, and that can accept the potency of bhakti, because the offense against devotees is the number one thing that will block the effect of bhakti taking place in our lives. So so many reasons why we must be aware of this. But also in this verse, there's a mention of these three types of pride which these kings possessed, possessing either at least one, if not all three types of pride. So this is something that Prabhupada quotes from Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. This is a verse from Mahabharata, and the verse says, "Those who are blind with pride have pride in education, pride in wealth, and pride in birth. These persons are avoided by the wise." So I think that that's just an interesting lesson to reflect on, and we can reflect on ourselves if we have pride in any of these areas: education, wealth, and birth. And we can also reflect on whether we associate with those who have pride in education, wealth, and birth, and we can reflect on maybe what effect does that have on us. One thing I can think about for sure is education. I mean, most of you who are on this call grew up in India, but and I'm sure the educational system, the peer pressure that comes with going through education in India might be as bad, if not worse, than in America. But I definitely remember seeing like the negative effects of kind of like the unspoken peer pressure of having to have the highest form of education, going to the best school. And I mean, we can see how that can play out sometimes, especially in the lives of young people going into higher education, high school, college. What kind of effects does it have to be concerned with having that whatever prestige or name, fame that comes with going to the best school or things like that? So anyway, these types of pride in education, pride in wealth, pride in birth, these things can be very detrimental for our own bhakti life, and it can also be detrimental to us if we associate with people who have such high levels of pride in these areas. So the last thing I wanted to share in relation to this verse was just this story about the kings who were captured by Jarasandha. We hear this story in the Srimad Bhagavatam in 10th canto. Actually, Rompad Maharaj spoke about it a little bit. I think it was during his Vyas Puja weekend or sometime around that time. And I also heard, over the course of 5 days at Govardhan Retreat in Vrindavan, Burijan Prabhu was speaking on this exact same section which is very relevant here. And so for any of you who have not heard that story, basically the context is that Jarasandha was an evil king, demon king, who had captured 20,000 kings, and he had imprisoned them, and he had imprisoned them in horrible conditions. They were malnourished, essentially on the verge of death. And so these kings, they managed to send a messenger to Krishna, and Krishna's in Dwarka, and they send a messenger to him, and the messenger relays the king's prayer, and it's very beautiful prayer. But at the core of the prayer, the kings are asking for help. They're asking for Krishna to save them from the demon king Jarasandha. And after, funnily enough, in typical Krishna fashion, after the messenger shares this message of kind of this very like dire situation that these 20,000 kings are in, Krishna turns to Narada, who enters this assembly, and he asks how he's doing, and then he asks about the well-being of the Pandavas, and it's basically the story kind of turns, because what ends up happening is, rather than Krishna immediately rushing to go and save the kings who are his devotees, he seemingly takes his time. He actually goes and he spends time with the Pandavas, Yudhishthira Maharaj and the rest of the Pandavas in their kingdom, and there's kind of descriptions of how they're essentially kind of enjoying themselves. And then us, the reader of the Bhagavatam, meanwhile, are wondering, wait, is Krishna going to save the kings that are captured by Jarasandha? They're still sitting there imprisoned. And sure enough, Krishna eventually arranges for the kings to be saved. Bhima kills Jarasandha, and the kings are released. And again, because these kings are devotees, it might be easy to forget, because they're asking for, just to be saved from this kind of like, impending death. And one of the first prayers that the kings offer to Krishna after he saved them is this. They say, it's in Canto 10, chapter 73, text number 9. They say, "O Master Madhusudana, we do not blame this king of Magadha, since it is actually by your mercy that kings fall from their royal position, O Almighty Lord." So this is amazing. I mean, that's an amazing prayer that these kings are offering, considering the circumstances that they've been in. For one, they sent a prayer to Krishna asking for his help. They received no reply. They received no promise that they will be saved, and they have no awareness of what's going to happen. They've just sent their plea, and they have no idea what's going to happen. And then after months pass, Krishna finally comes and he saves them from Jarasandha. And these kings, you would think, they have all the right, from like an external point of view, to show some type of like, well, Krishna, why didn't you come earlier? It was not the easiest conditions that they lived in, but they don't show any feelings like that. This prayer that they're offering, they're actually thankful, and they hold no resentment towards Jarasandha, who was the instrument of their karma. And so they're expressing not only their gratitude for Krishna saving them, but also their lack of ill feelings toward Jarasandha, who actually ended up being an instrument that kind of facilitated their full surrender to the Lord. So this is a beautiful example of another story where Krishna, quote unquote, takes his time to to show, to deliver justice and to protect his devotees. So I wanted to share that story in this context. So I'll stop there. This lesson of Krishna, Krishna waiting is a very beautiful and very relevant lesson for us to learn, because as we're practicing our devotional life, we're all waiting. So it's about how we wait that kind of determines what our result will be, I think. So thank you all. And if anybody has any comments or questions, please feel free to share.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, please accept my humble obeisances always to Srila Prabhupada. Again, thank you for the short but very deep and absorbing. The topic was like that, and this pastime of the king's waiting, that was really mind-blowing for me. Even for the little things, I'm like, okay, Krishna, I'm asking you for your service. Why are you not letting me? Why are you not kind of reciprocating what I'm asking? But what you mentioned, I mean, this is like such an extreme example where they don't even have a clue. Like, of course, they have trust in Krishna and Krishna's protection. But as we hear, Krishna will protect, but in his own time, on his terms, not on our terms. So in one sense, it's just such a beautiful meditation, either for the short term, whatever, service aspirations or desires we have, or for the longer term, what's going to happen when I have to leave, will Krishna really remember, and will he really give me the opportunity to remember him? So that was very, very beautiful. And this Draupadi's case, just one little thing we were discussing in Bhakti Vaibhava class, the same topic actually. It's, how Krishna's intense affection for his devotees. So Gopal Hari Prabhu was sharing at the end when Krishna was about to disappear, Prabhu was sharing, for any person, they feel some kind of regret for what they could have done better, and some satisfaction that, okay, I have done this, whatever. So like that, it's like Krishna was feeling apparently regret that I could have gone a little sooner to save Draupadi. I have put her through this anxiety. So, that was really sweet to get that, inner workings of Krishna's heart. It's so beautiful. So it's very nice. I mean, just that whole total meditation on this waiting also, I'm thinking, we are thinking, oh, my time is going away, so what am I going to do? But on the eternal time frame, it's not really so much in one sense. Our for Krishna's mercy. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for sharing that, Mataji. Sorry, Prabhu. You please go ahead.
Please accept my humble obeisances. Prabhuji, such a wonderful, talk you gave today, particularly waiting for Krishna. That's one of the sweetest. Sometimes, for some devotees it is sweet, and for others, it's also very tough and difficult. We see this theme going throughout. Kunti Devi going through so many torments. Now, one of the examples that comes to my mind is like even Bhishma. He has a lifelong wait. Even though he's seeing Krishna almost on a daily basis, he has to wait for that Uttarayana to give up his body in presence of Krishna. That's a different type of wait, but they're also, he's waiting. About, the two most, controversial or infamous things that happened in Mahabharata was, one is the game of dice, and the other one is Draupadi's disrobing. It is said that, Krishna, when Draupadi asked, did you not come up early? For that, Krishna, his answer was, I wanted to come in when the dice game was going on, but Yudhishthira did not, even for once think of me. He was like probably, like what is being said is Yudhishthira was probably shy. He didn't want, because he was going to gamble,
Yeah.
and he didn't want to involve the Lord in that, so that's how he, and at that point of time, and even with Draupadi, he said, I was waiting out there for you, but you didn't call out for me. The moment you called
Yeah.
out, that's what he said. But yeah, at the end, he also expresses the regret that he could have done more with Draupadi's case. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. I didn't know that about Yudhishthira Maharaj's kind of reasoning, and that also makes me think of that offense against chanting the holy name, to commit sinful activities on the strength of chanting the holy name of the Lord. I kind of think about, Yudhishthira Maharaj is very honorable in one sense to, to not want to call Krishna into this kind of
Yes.
adharmic activity, right? So, but he's doing it from his own devotional sentiment. So yeah, that's very sweet.
Actually, Prabhuji, that's a good point. About Yudhishthira also, if you look at Prabhupada's purports, Prabhupada very clearly says Yudhishthira did not have a weakness for, gambling. It is because Dhritarashtra asked him to do, and he treated Dhritarashtra equal to his own father, that he partook in it, and not really weakness. Because, he's, like Yamaraj himself. So, he can't have that sort of a flaw. Then the other thing that comes to my mind is Shabari, she's waiting for Lord Ram all along. The same way, Gautami, she's waiting in the form of a stone for the Lord to come, for the dust of the Lord. There's so many instances. Some of them are so sweet. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. I feel like this topic could be talked about for so long, but one other reflection I just wanted to share that was something you said reminded me was that I think we have the right to feel simultaneously, like we can simultaneously suffer, waiting for the mercy of Krishna to show itself in our lives, and we can also appreciate the beauty of waiting. So I don't think it necessarily has to be one or the other, that we either suffer or we appreciate or we experience bliss. Even as we can see in the lives of the greatest devotees of Krishna, the gopis, they experience the highest, the most intense suffering, but they're also experiencing the most intense bliss, simultaneously waiting for Krishna to show himself to them. So obviously, not that we're there, but I don't think we don't have to delude ourselves into thinking that, oh, it's wrong for me to experience unhappiness while waiting for the mercy of Krishna. But actually, by experiencing unhappiness, wait and simultaneously showing our perseverance to continue to practice and aspire for the goal of bhakti is showing that perseverance is what itself allows us to achieve the goal. So anyway, thank you both for sharing. Anyone else?
Hare Krishna, Mukunda, Prabhu, Jai.
Yes, Prabhu.
Very nice class, Prabhu. Very nice class. So I think the topic today was how theoretically, we should have patience. We'll read. So what is the patience? What is the meaning of patience? And how one can become patient and wait for Krishna, right? That's the thing I thought.
Yeah.
But with your story, the one which Jarasandha story, that also very nice story.
Yeah.
So I was saying, one time, Vaisheshika Prabhu was telling us once, he had gone to Los Angeles, and then once somebody was giving a class, Srimad Bhagavatam class. And Prabhu thought, I never saw him giving a class. He is actually a kirtaniya. I don't know what he can speak. But this, after hearing his class, he was, Vaisheshika Prabhu felt ecstasy. Wow, what a class. So I'm just appreciating you, openly. If you say, hey, you're a great speaker, not speaker, but you have a good heart, that because you're a very good Kirtaniya, Krishna reveals all the good things in your heart. And the way you speak, whether it's a short or long class, doesn't matter. Whatever you speak is sweet. Thank you for that.
Oh my gosh. Thank you for you're very good at appreciating others. Thank you. Anybody else wanted to share any final thoughts? Otherwise, we can stop there.
Just the other thing, Prabhu, as we were talking about this Yudhishthir Maharaj, the other thing we were discussing in this last Sunday class.
Yeah.
Why Yudhishthir Maharaj didn't call Gopal Hari Prabhu very eloquently, very beautifully. He was saying, pure devotees, they don't want to take service of the Lord.
Yeah.
Only when it is really stopping their service, then they will call out. I mean, it may be very far for us. For us, even little things may be, causing that, stopping the service. So I really like the point you brought up. We can simultaneously feel that, like, how we are suffering at the same time, waiting and earnestly calling out. So for us, it may be very small things, which may entice us to call, but for Yudhishthir Maharaj, losing the kingdom and whatnot is not such a big thing. They could still continue service, but for Draupadi's instance, they couldn't take it. So that is why she called out. That's what Prabhu was explaining.
Yeah. That's the heart of a devotee, of course. It's beautiful. I remember the one time I can remember praying sincerely in my life was back. I have ulcerative colitis, which is like a chronic disease, but it was very intense, like maybe, I don't know, 5-7 years ago. And it was so bad that I couldn't even, I couldn't play mridanga, I couldn't sit in kirtan, I could only just sit on a chair on the side. I was too weak. And that was the only time in my life that I've ever prayed to Krishna. I went to Kishore Kishori, I stood in front of them at the altar, and I basically told Krishna that, I want to be better because I'm suffering, but more importantly, I can't do kirtan for you if I can't get better. So please help me, because I can't do the one service that I have some ability to perform. I'm not able to do that unless you make me better. So please help a brother out, as we say. And so, yeah, that's like the only prayer that we can aspire to make, and that's the devotee's heart all the time, is that they only pray for Krishna's mercy so that they can continue to serve him. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Mukunda, for sharing that personal this thing. It was so heart touching. I remember that time very well. It was a very hard time for us all, when you were so sick.
Yes,
Thanks to Krishna. Thanks to Krishna.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank everyone for sharing your thoughts and for hearing me speak. Hope everyone has a good day. Waiting for Krishna's mercy. Hare Krishna.